Welcome to Outlier on Air. Today we are at Startup Ogden at the co-working space in downtown Ogden, and we are with Randall Bennett with Vidpresso.
Hey.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome, we're excited to have you. So you're the founder of Vidpresso.
Yep.
Fresh out of Y Combinator,
Yes.
from what I understand.
Yes, pretty fresh, yeah.
Congratulations. I think you're the first Utah company to be accepted to Y Combinator?
There's a couple of us. There was one in our batch. There's two Utah companies in the last batch. One called Weave, and they do dental CRM phone systems or something cool like that. Anyway, they're good guys. It was great to be in Y Combinator with them because we were both Utah companies. We're you could say born and raised in Utah as our companies are. And so it was great to have some camaraderie and people who had my back there, who knew what it was like to be in an entrepreneurial environment like this.
Okay, so I want to dig into that. Tell me a little bit about Vidpresso.
So Vidpresso is a way for broadcasters to use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on TV. So when you're watching a TV show and they want to use tweets or images or coming soon video from social media, our software makes it really easy for them to do that with just one click. So as a producer, I can go through, I can find posts that I like using hashtags or search terms or just users pages, and I can click send to air, and instantly it'll show up on TV. And we're a full stack startup, which means we actually make it so that we make the software for the producers, but we also make it for the thing that actually shows up on TV. So the graphics that show up on air, that's all of our software from start to finish.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so take me through this a little bit slower.
Sure.
This is really interesting. So we're broadcasters.
Yep.
Help me understand what the life cycle is like and what the experience is for the user.
So CNN's one of our customers, for example. They have CNN AC360, Anderson Cooper's primetime show. Sometimes they'll want to involve users in their comments. So say they're talking about, I don't know, something happening in the Ukraine or some news topic of the day. They'll put up hashtag AC360 Live. People can tweet to that hashtag. And then CNN producers can sort through, see all the different posts in those hashtags. If they see a comment that they think adds to the discussion, they can click send to air, and that'll show up on TV right away.
Right away with the live footage that they're streaming.
Yeah, so we just integrate into their regular production workflow. One of the things that we tried really hard is to make it so that they don't actually have to buy any extra hardware. We integrate with stuff they already have. So I don't know, we look at ourselves as kind of like our vision's a lot bigger than that. That's kind of the slice of it. But that's what we're working on right now. And we're trying to make that as simple as possible.
Okay, so that's like milestone, the next milestone, and then what's your big goal?
Yeah, so we didn't start with social media or even in this world. I actually come from the world of broadcast. When I was 17, I started working for ESPN as a production freelancer. My older brothers both work in broadcast as well. My brother Ryan was the first ring reporter for Ultimate Fighting. He died in 2006, so he's no longer with us. But my other brother Rick, he's the guy who does the ESPN ticker. When you watch the little scoreboard in the corner, that was his job, was to make sure that the score works. Anyway, so they got me into broadcast at a young age, and I fell in love. I love live production. I love the rush of creating a broadcast. There's nothing like it. And I worked in local news, which is really difficult because the content, to be totally frank, I just didn't identify with. I would go to work and I would love to create the actual broadcasts. I worked for KSL in Salt Lake City, and we'd create these awesome broadcasts where we'd have guests in and whatever, and it was, news is this well-oiled machine. It's built to create lots of content.
Right.
But I just didn't care about it. It wasn't the thing I cared about. The thing I cared about was technology.
Yeah.
So, I started working for some online publications. Back in 2005, I worked for Engadget when it was just like a small website. And I was the first hire at Engadget who was not a blogger. So, there I had this opposite problem. I loved the content. It was the best thing in the world, but I just didn't care. In fact, I hated the production process. It took me days to produce 3 minutes of content.
Right.
It was so frustrating. Anyway, so throughout that experience, I started looking and deciding why is it so hard to create all this content? Why is video fundamentally difficult? I came up with this thesis, which essentially the way TV works and the way it's worked forever, broadcasters spend all this money up front, millions and millions of dollars, and they buy what I call a mainframe. And essentially that mainframe's job is to do it has one job, output a signal to a dumb terminal, a TV, right? And the contract is that broadcasters get to spend millions of dollars, and then the TVs cost a lot less, and they can have no logic at all, right? That's the way it's always worked forever. Small people like me I don't have enough money for millions of dollars, so instead I have to invest all this time and effort and buy software that sort of works. Anyway, so I realized like this process is the way it's always been, and it should actually be different. The way it should work is, instead of having this mainframe that costs millions of dollars, what if the client device got smarter? What if the TV was actually responsible for doing more of the work? That means you could offload, instead of having 5 mainframes broadcast to thousands of TVs, you could have thousands of TVs that could do the work of the mainframe. Right? That's the basic premise. Like, of what we think is going to happen is this client device, this TV, it's going to continue to get smarter. And so when you watch, and there's graphics overlaying and tickers and different cameras, all of that could actually happen on the client. Right? That's like a dramatic departure from where we are today. So you can't start there. You could never start with like, okay, we're going to change how all of it works and just like get on board, broadcasters.
You have to roll with what's trending.
Exactly. You have to start with how they are today. So what we're doing today is we're taking those client devices that we think will be good enough to create that TV quality stuff, and we're bringing them into the mainframe. And what that means is like our software runs completely on web browsers. And normally broadcasters spend like $100,000 to buy a custom piece of hardware that does what our software does. Okay. So we do things in a totally different way. By using browsers and other technology that's evolved over the last 5 to 6 years, really, we're able to create like TV quality experiences using off-the-shelf computers. So hopefully one day we'll like turn all of that mainframe into like regular off-the-shelf computers. And then one day we can flip a switch, and instead of broadcasting like signals over the air, we can broadcast data directly to clients. That's the big vision. It's kind of
you're lowering the barrier of entry for media.
Yeah, exactly. Like broadcasters, CNN can do something like tweets on TV, and they have for the last couple of years. But smaller TV stations throughout the US and internationally, they haven't been able to do this. So most of the people who love our software are in places like Kenya, Lebanon, Israel, Pakistan, like places that are, they just don't have as much money to spend on broadcast equipment, but we give them the same quality that they're like, so they really love it.
Okay, so what's the cost of using your software? Is it only really meant for right now or affordable to big broadcasters, or can new media people use it?
I mean, anyone can use it, but our pricing typically lends to people who are making money off their shows. So like, it's $500 a month. So that's our base package. We're coming out with some other pricing packages that do other more fancy things for broadcasters soon. So we're priced typically for people who already make lots of money off their shows.
Okay.
Our goal, though, over time is to introduce, like, we'll probably have a TriCaster. I mean, this is unofficial, but we think about the TriCaster as a place where we could create products for. Maybe we could have a lower price there because it's easier to do. I mean, there's other things we think about doing, but for now, like, we're really focused just on like people who currently broadcast because they're kind of ignored.
Right.
I mean, the technology for broadcast evolved in the 80s and then was frozen in time, and we're trying to unthaw it.
That's a good way of putting it. I like the point of really you're on the offensive, so you're ready to jump on the technology as it's developing to the mass market, and that's a trend that actually we've been seeing in some of these other companies that we've been interviewing. One thing I really want to dig into is again the Y Combinator experience.
Sure.
So how, of course, it's difficult to get into that program. How did you get in?
Oh my gosh, this is like I don't know if I've ever told this story before. It's kind of hilarious. Like, so we launched roughly a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, fully. And I didn't do YC for a long time just because I don't know why I didn't do it, to be honest. I just didn't. Last fall, we had some acquisition interest start to pick up, and we kind of decided, what do we want to be as a company? Where do we want to be in 2 years? Do we want to be where we're at now or whatever? And the deadline for YC had passed forever. I think the deadline was October 15th or something. And
and you knew you didn't want to be acquired then.
Correct. Yeah. At that point.
Offered.
Yeah. So the company that tried to acquire us then was really lame, and we thought they were totally uninteresting. We had some other acquisition offers later that were awesome, but so at this point, we had sent in. I sent an email to Y Combinator's founder Paul Graham, and I was like, hey, I want to apply late. Are you still accept applications? He's like, it's really unlikely you'll get in. The application link's open for you. And so I filled out the application, and I didn't hear anything. So this is December 15th, and YC starts January 6th.
Okay.
And so it's January 3rd, and I still hadn't heard anything. And then I got an email on Thursday. So the first dinner was Tuesday. I got an email on Thursday that was hey, come on for Monday, and we'll interview you. And if you get in, you'll start the next day. So I was one of the last. There's 2 people who were late accepted to YC. It was me and a project that's building an HIV vaccine.
Oh, wow. How do you?
So clearly I'm,
Really?
anyway. So
How do you compete with that?
Yeah, exactly, right. Anyway, so we applied late, they interviewed us. I had done work with Y Combinator before on I actually had done video production work for them a long time ago. So I kind of knew them a little bit, and I had talked to Paul Graham before about my ideas,
Okay,
stuff I
so
explained
he knew
previously.
of you.
So he kind of knew like what was happening, but I hadn't built a product yet. And at this point, I was like, this is it. This is the product to do.
So you had a product. You had what?
Yeah,
A
we were
prototype?
launched.
Some kind of
We
MVP.
had
or-
users.
You had
no.
users. Okay.
Yeah, we had CNN at that point. CNN, we did CNN's New Year's Eve broadcast last year.
Okay. So
That
why
was,
did they accept you over?
I mean, when I explained this, hopefully it came across at this last second that I'm really passionate about this.
Yeah.
It's not something that I just thought about and see an opportunity. It's like I care about video intimately, and typically, I mean, this is I'm speaking for them a little bit, but people who are obsessed with product tend to build better companies, right? People who care about the user experience and really genuinely care, they tend to, I mean, hopefully they build better products. That's what I'm hoping anyway. So I feel like my passion comes across to people, and they get that I'm already doing this. It wasn't like I was quitting my job to go try at YC. It was I was already doing it full time.
Okay.
And I think they get the vision, and YC doesn't have a time horizon. A lot of VC, they'll have 7 years from when you invest is the end of your company, or the end of their investment, right? Because YC doesn't have a time horizon, and my idea might take a little bit longer.
So what was the one major benefit? Choose one or two. Tell me why was it worth it?
Lots of companies care about you when you're in YC, which is awesome.
Okay.
So we got all these credits
Okay.
that make it so that we don't have to pay any infrastructure costs right now.
Okay.
So it's a huge benefit.
What about the program itself?
Yeah, so that's the ancillary benefit. The actual program, I think the biggest thing is that you feel like you're not alone, right? People who are high achieving or aspire to be high achieving, that's where I categorize myself rather than high achieving, but if you want to do something interesting, it's really hard to find people around you who want to do high level stuff. Most of the people you talk to are they work at regular jobs, or they do regular things. And when you say things like, I'm going to quit my job and start a company, they look at you like why would you do that? And more to the point, if you have the ability to execute on your vision, there are very few people around you who will be at a similar level. And the greatest thing about YC is it makes you realize that everything is possible. Hearing from the dinners week to week from founders of huge companies like Facebook or Pinterest or whoever, they make you feel they were you 8 years ago. The founder of Pinterest, he did YC before.
Is that right?
Yeah, his company failed, right? They make you feel like you're not you're not as crazy as you feel.
Cool.
Right? And having the cohort of people who are in the exact same stage as you.
Right.
I mean, I text my friend Razvan from 2Tap once a week, or random people from the YC network I'm able to just reach out to, and I mean that support, especially I'm a single founder. I had a co-founder who left the company last year. That support is
huge,
priceless. It's so helpful.
So what about any negatives? Anything that you would caution against when going into a program like that?
It depends on who you are. A lot of people will recommend optimizing for YC specifically, so trying to time it correctly so that you can grow huge. I'm kind of meh,
Yeah.
I think you should do it whenever you feel like it's right for your company.
Okay. When is it right for your company?
So for me, I wish I had done it way earlier. I wish I had done it way.
Is it when you're in a rut and you need to cross the threshold?
Honestly,
kind of thing,
it's
or?
as soon as they'll accept you. That's the right time, honestly, because if you can get into YC, you should just get into YC. It's a multiplier on your company's trajectory. So the later you do it, the more processes you already have established, and the more things you might be doing incorrectly. The earlier you do it, the easier it is to kind of use it as a, if you're just at a blank drawing board, it's easier to position yourself correctly.
Okay. So coming out, you've been through the program.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where are you at now? Do you feel wow, you're so much farther than you were before the program?
Yeah.
What state are you in?
I mean, our biggest thing is that I feel super clear on where we go now. So I had this product before, and I had this end vision, and then the middle was just a big question mark. I don't have the whole thing worked out yet, but YC especially helped me buckle down and just think really hard about what's the next step we need to take. And for us, we're going to add video support. We're going to try to become more crucial to TV stations. So we're going to try to maybe come out with a different product or something that TV stations need. Right now what we have is a want, and that's good, but we probably could do something better. Anyway, those are the sort of questions that I didn't know how to answer before, and it's a lot simpler.
So do you feel more sure about how to go about answering those questions and what questions to ask yourself?
That's actually that's a way better way to put it. I know now better what questions to ask. It's not that I have the answers, but I know better how to think about like what I'm doing. And the thing is, a lot of what I see is just the pressure that it puts on you. If you're the type of person who wants to do a startup, that pressure will actually bring out a lot of that stuff for you. So it's not necessarily, there was this one moment when I talked to this one partner at YC and it changed my company forever. But this, over 3 months, it was more, I thought about my company differently every day, and it made me adjust how I did things.
It's like a mindset shift or something.
Exactly, yeah.
How many of you have heard entrepreneurs on Outlier on Air say to focus on your strengths and outsource the things that you don't have time for or that are not the most strategic activities for you to be doing? How many of you are trying to be your own web designer? Wouldn't you love a beautiful, stunning website that reflects your personal or company brand and engages your customer? Are you spending valuable time trying to figure it out and fiddle with WordPress? Well, no more. It's time to outsource that baby to the experts. At Outlier, we have teamed up with Flitch Creative, a web design company that we trust, who actually we use to build outliermagazine.co. The guys at Flitch Creative have experience with solopreneurs, startups, podcasters, YouTubers, and tons of businesses. So they've put special packages together for the Outlier audience specifically geared toward entrepreneurs. Because of the size of the Outlier audience, Flitch has priced these packages at a very affordable rate for you. I challenge you to find the same quality for these prices. So stop spending your valuable time on your site and focus on the activities that are going to make you successful. Go to outliermagazine.co, click on resources up at the top, and choose the web package that's right for you today.
So you're in an extremely competitive space, in the broadcasting space. What makes you think that you can take that on and service these huge networks?
It's not. I wouldn't describe our space so much as competitive.
No.
Because like there are people who do what we do, but the way that they do it is like traditional and legacy. There's ways that they go about things that are the way it's always been done. The weird thing about us is that we do it in a completely different way. Like we don't want to. Like a simple example. I would rather have someone sign up with a credit card on the website and not be locked into a long-term contract than the opposite. A lot of broadcasters typically do like 12 to 36-month contracts, and they're like millions of dollars. And I'd rather just have someone who loves my product use it every day and pay me $500 a month, and if they don't get use out of it, they cancel. Because that means that we're always honest about making the product better.
Sure.
That mindset I think illustrates how like we are. Especially in broadcast. In broadcast, I will say we are an outlier because realistically, like we don't want to do things like the way it's always been done, and that's kind of weird. Yeah.
Which is your strength.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So you mentioned that you had a co-founder that left before that whole process, before getting into Combinator.
Yeah.
Can you share with us what the situation was there? Did you feel like there was a weak spot in your company at that time?
No, totally. So the issue was really like just a difference of alignment. Realistically, like I'd already gone full time on the company, maybe earlier than I should have in retrospect. Like, because I had gone full time and he hadn't, so we were both like in different places.
Sure.
And that was really like what created a huge issue. It's not even personality. Like, I think he's one of my really good friends. Like, we still stay in touch. It's more just like, if I could go back in time, I might try to like more correctly, create the incentives so that we went full time at the same time, or that we were lockstep together. Because the separation that I created, which was accidental, like it really created a wedge, and that's just. It's like any relationship. You screw it up, and like, oh well,
Sure.
And in retrospect too, though, he had some, like, he now knowing what I know about startups now, he was naive in different ways that would have been difficult for us now. So in some ways, it's like a blessing because we were misaligned in a lot of ways.
It seems like the first year, a lot of those things they shake out in the first year. How old is your company?
We're like 2 years old, so
Okay.
it was like right after the first year.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, do you mind if we talk about revenue a little
Yeah,
bit?
I mean, I won't
I'd
say
love-
specifics, but like we can talk about like
as specific as you can
growth
get. Yeah, I'd
or
love to know.
whatever.
So, first of all, if you can give me a little roadmap as to how that's gone since the beginning and
Yeah.
after the Accelerated program, where you're at now.
Yeah, so let's see.
you-
We grew slowly, like we grew bootstrapped for a really long time. So we just like added a few customers a month.
Were you always cash positive, or did you have
We
a big
were.
barrier of entry?
No, we were cash flow positive until like April of this year, which is after YC.
Okay.
Well,
Until April of this year.
Until February. Earlier this year, we stopped being cash flow positive.
And that is because
we just chose to accelerate growth.
okay.
So we took investment, we spent more money, we're seeing some returns right now. We need to see more. But
Are you glad that you did that?
yeah, I mean it's scary. Holy crap!
It's scary to put all that money down.
Like it's insane to to look and say like I've spent $50,000 this month or
Yeah.
something. And I mean
Yeah,
it's
sure.
really just like it changed. It's the difference between being a bootstrap startup where you watch every penny and you're like super careful,
Right.
and you instead are saying now like I will sacrifice spending
Sure.
every cent at the expense of growth. Like we want to grow faster, so we're going to try to
So
spend money there. So we have like hired people, and we have 6 people now, and it's just different than it was.
6 people, 5 being employees.
Correct, yeah.
Salaried.
Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of monetary boost did you get from Y Combinator?
So YC's terms are pretty standard. We got a different deal than they do now. Now they do $125,000 for 6% of your company, which is like an effective
Okay.
whatever 2-point-something million dollar valuation for like a brand new company. That's insanely good.
Okay.
Even for like a company at our age, that's insanely good. The boost it gave to us to be able to go out to investors was huge. We haven't disclosed our funding yet. We have raised money, and we'll like probably talk about that.
Okay.
I don't know, in the next like 6 months or something.
So are you well over $1 million in revenue now?
We're not. We
Or
haven't
are
publicly
you-
disclosed our revenue.
Gotcha. Okay.
but, yeah.
All right. Okay. So makes sense. So do you feel the injection of funds and resources with Y Combinator has overall been positive?
Yeah, definitely. Our growth rate. I'll tell you, our growth rate has accelerated. We grew like 24% in April. We typically stayed around 10 now. We're working on sales stuff, which is like that's the hardest thing. Is like I'm not a sales guy, and I'm like figuring out sales. We have an awesome sales guy who is way better at sales than I am. But for me, like a lot of the power of YC was like vision and focus, and our revenue. Like at the end of YC, we've grown. I think the most we ever, like the most since we were like a baby company.
Okay.
We grew a lot. So
Okay.
yeah.
So when we first sat down and we're talking the pre-interview,
Yeah.
it seemed like you were kind of having a down day,
Yeah.
which we all have
Oh.
in the startup world.
Sure.
So I'd love for you to share with me. It doesn't necessarily have to be why the down day
No, I'll
today,
totally share
but what are
everything.
some of these major struggles that you can share with us that we can learn from? I'd love
Yeah.
to just have one strong
Like
one.
today's one that's like pretty common. I mean, I would say this is like the recurring one, is that we have to grow faster, and every company has to grow faster.
Sure.
Like today I did financials, so I did everything,
Oh, well, that's it.
and you're like, oh my gosh, like we could die by next year or whatever, which is not going to happen. But it's that realization that like this is you have to execute. Like you have to make money, you have to get customers. It's not just we didn't just take investors' money to just play and go to conferences and whatever. Like we have to grow. So that's what today is just doing spreadsheets. It's hard, and I think that's what people don't realize about the difference between being a founder and the first employee. Is like when you're the founder, I mean I share all those details with our team, and they have access to all the data that I have. But like if we fail, it's all my fault. Like it really is.
It comes back to you.
Yeah, and like, I mean, yeah, I hired these guys. They have generous equity grants, probably bigger than I've heard of most companies, specifically because I want them to feel like founders. But at the end of the day, like, if we screw it up, it's like it's all my fault, and that's the worst. And the worst part is like at YC, you hear all these speakers who come, and like the question that we would always ask is like, does it get better? And they say no. Like you never feel like you're a success because the gap between what's possible and where you're at today continually widens. So for Pinterest, like, people would just say they're the biggest success ever, and they want to be like bigger.
Yeah,
They want
sure.
to be and so for them, for like every founder, you just get in this place where, you know, I couldn't have imagined quitting my job and having a full-time job doing this company. And now it's like, I can't imagine us, you know, being in every major network and whatever. But if we're successful, that will happen. You know, it's just the gap will always widen.
Sure. So bring me to that crash and burn story. Do you have a crash and burn story? The one that's in your head that I'm trying to pull out from you right now. Do you have a crash and burn story within this company, or is there one that's brought you to this company that you?
Well, one where I totally failed. Let's see. I mean, the great thing about this company is we've run it in such a way that there hasn't been a complete like implosion. It's all been kind of steady.
That's good.
Yeah, like there's just constant failure versus like one big failure. Another company, like I had done this company with one of my best friends, and it was called Obsessible. It was a publication that was intended to compete with CNET. I had worked at CNET before, anyway, and I did such a bad, like I didn't know anything about startups. I barely know anything now, but then I actually knew nothing, and I started it. And we had funding from like Andreessen and like all these people.
Right away.
And we didn't test our hypothesis. We had this hypothesis that people would want to shop for gadgets using a thing we called a comparator. Like you could compare products directly. Turns out no one buys products that way. So we launched probably in September, and by December we totally had like failed, and I quit, and most of the people got laid off. That site eventually died. Like everything about it was like a huge failure. And for probably like 2 or 3 months afterwards, I just was like, I felt like a loser and an idiot. It's like it's a lot easier to not make noob mistakes, to be less of a newbie.
Yeah.
But you make like different horrible mistakes.
Sure. So there are plenty of innovative products out there, possibly even within this industry, that are trying to innovate and revolutionize this old school type of industry. What are you doing to stay relevant, to stay competitive, to really stay up on that so that you can get their business and stay on top of the market?
Yeah. Do you want to get them, or you can't hear it? Okay.
No, this is great.
Okay, cool. Let's do an edit break. All right.
Yeah.
That was my like edit spot.
I didn't even.
So right after her question, I mean, just
Yeah,
go
cool.
into it.
Okay.
One of the ways that I try to stay competitive is I read Hacker News, which sounds like kind of obvious, and I mean it's in Y Combinator's world, so it's like kind of self-serving. But I read that pretty much every day. I learn new things that I didn't know before. A lot of specific. I mean, anyone who starts a technology company should be a technologist, or one of the founding members should be a technologist,
Right.
so that you fundamentally understand technology. That's the place where I go to learn about new things that I haven't heard of before. It's a place where everyone posts their new stuff. So that's the biggest one. Is just I read Hacker News like religiously every day. The other one is I'll read occasional business books. I just got Reid Hoffman's new book. It's like The Alliance or something. It talks about how an employment relationship is more of an alliance, and if you build your employment relationship correctly, people will always have your back, even if they get fired.
Yeah.
So I read business books by people like that. I do read some blogs. I purposefully stopped following all venture capitalists on Twitter. Maybe I shouldn't say that,
Really?
but I did. Like I don't follow any. I feel like the people who are doing things always know more than the people who are saying things. So I'll follow some other founders on Twitter and Facebook and read their Medium posts. But most of the time, Hacker News points me to everything I need to read anyway. So.
Do you look at competitors? Do you have?
No, I completely ignore competitors. Like we have competitors. We have our sales guy Hassan did a analysis 2 weeks ago of all of our competitors, and it was healthy because it's good to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But in general, they don't affect my company. They don't affect the decisions that we make. If they're successful, it doesn't mean we can't be. In general, there's a saying that is not mine, that someone else said, that startups rarely commit homicide, or they're never murdered. They always commit suicide. So, your biggest problem is yourself usually.
Good point.
Yeah.
So is that if you were to mentor our entrepreneurs who are out there, many of them creating tech products, bringing tech into non-tech industries, what would be a key piece of guidance that you could give them?
Yeah, so I actually have a standard list of things that I give people, because I'll have a bunch of people come to me and they'll say I want to do what you did, or because I've only been coding for 4.5 years, right? I was a technologist before, but now I'm a builder. And they'll say how do I do that? I want to, in 5 years from now, I want to have my own company. And I have this kit, and essentially the kit contains If you go to Y Combinator, there's like a startup library at the bottom. It has all these essays. If you just read those essays, you'll know everything you know about starting a company, like the basics, right? If you go to Clerky, they have all the Clerky.com. They have all this incorporation paperwork, so you can do it correctly, the same way that like every company should, like Delaware C Corp, board consents, blah blah blah, the whole nine. And then I just say go to Codecademy, it's a website, and learn JavaScript, and then build things in Node.js, which is like a development environment. Anyway, that like if you do that,
the lethal combination.
yeah, you'll build you'll have the skills at least to know how to build a company, even if you don't build one. So like I mean, I have a kid doing this right now. He came over to my house this morning at 9, and he showed me like, this is what I built last week, and I was like, awesome. Okay, this week you're gonna do this, and he goes off and he's gonna build more Node.js stuff.
Love it.
So that's
passing it on.
Yeah, like, and I really want I always tell people, if you're committed, if you actually will do, if you'll actually do things. That's the thing is, most people are talkers. They'll say, oh, I want to start a company because I want to be rich, or I want to have an Audi, or I literally heard someone say I want to have an Audi as the reason they started a company, and I was like. Anyway, so if you actually do what you're saying, it's not rocket science. I mean, there's so many. 10 years ago, we didn't have any of these resources. They're all brand new. Anyone can be an entrepreneur now. It's just you have to actually do it.
Yep, and stay up on what's going on
Exactly.
and then attack it, right?
Yeah, it has to be. You have to have a reason for doing it that's not just money. I mean, it could I think Sam Altman from YC. I read a post of his a couple of weeks ago. It was there's 3 reasons to do a startup. One is, the best reason is because you want to solve a problem. Another reason is because you want to have power, because you could be a CEO or whatever, which is a crappy reason, but it's better than nothing. And the third and least useful reason is because you're greedy. So really you want to try to trend towards that top of the spectrum.
Sure.
So.
Funny how the top of the spectrum really is the most, where you find the most success.
Exactly. Well, it's the only place that innovation occurs. Everything else you're a follower. So.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
So we are going to put all these great resources that you just mentioned on our website at outliermagazine.co. You'll have a show notes page. Where can we find you directly on the web?
Yeah, so I'm Randall B on Twitter. That's probably the easiest way.
Okay.
Our company is vidpresso.com. We have phone numbers and email addresses there if you want to get in touch with us.
Okay,
So,
fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I
yeah,
appreciate it.
no problem. Thanks.